No.
Okay, so welcome to the Easthampton Affordable and Fair Housing Partnership. It's Thursday, May 28th, 2020 at 6:06 p.m. So I did make a correction to the agenda for number 1 from what was posted to approve the minutes from February and April, because our March meeting, we actually did not meet in March, so the March meeting was canceled. And so I don't think we did approve the February minutes, right? Because we tabled them last time because we ran out of time.
Okay.
Did you send them to Barbara, Ken?
I sent the February meeting minutes to everyone.
Right.
Again.
I have them. I actually revised them a little bit right before this meeting at the final second.
That's fine.
And then once we approve them, then we can send them to Barbara as our official meeting minutes.
Okay, so I have to approve them and then I'll resend them. Is that what you're saying? Or you're going to approve them?
Well, we can all approve them together, and then you and I can talk about who sends them to Barbara. I made some
fine. Okay, fine.
which I can share with you if I can figure that out. Let's see. Wait, I'm going to stop sharing this screen.
Jana, your changes are the red, right?
Yes. And I'm going to... Can you see my thing?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
All right. So I added a little bit from what we talked about, the advocacy for the Safe Haven project. And
Jenna, so we just see your internet, or you see your browser?
So what?
Your file browser?
Open it? This is very confusing. I'm sorry. Hold on.
You kind of have to have it open and then select it. There you go.
There it is.
Sorry, I should have practiced this before. All right, so this is the meeting. These are the minutes. Ken had circulated them. We didn't know we did them last time.
Sure.
And so I just added a couple things about the advocacy issues that we talked about, and Jamie's brief update on the SRO Capital Needs Project.
Okay.
Do folks want a chance to read these now, and then we can vote on them?
I read through them, but we can take a second if folks want it.
I read through them as well. So I'll make a motion to accept,
I second that motion.
and then folks can take the minute that we would normally discuss to read them.
Thank you. I did not get these. Thank you.
I sent them about 3 minutes before the meeting started. I apologize.
Oh, okay. All right. It looks accurate to me, so. Accept or.
All right, so all in favor of approving the meeting minutes from February?
Aye.
Richard,
Aye.
is our hand?
Jamie, do we have to do a roll call vote?
I think maybe.
I was muted. So, yeah, we should be doing a roll call vote, but also just sort of any sort of acknowledgement, like, you know, seeing the hands raised or something like that. So that way if there was a gap or delay in people's video, but their video still showed them being present, you would see that they.
I'm sorry, what is the roll call vote?
We just go through each person and say, how do you vote?
Oh, got it. Okay, got it.
Yay, nay, abstain.
All right, so we need to do that? Is that what you're saying?
Or confirmation, you know, if everyone raises their hands, you know, all those in favor raise your hand, and if, you know.
All right, all those in favor.
Roll call's the easiest, but there's lots of ways to do it.
All right, we kind of just did this, but all in favor of approving the February minutes, raise your hand visibly.
Hey.
All right, thank you.
Aye.
Ken, I will send you the accepted version. So
Okay,
you have it, and then we can send it to Barbara.
fine.
Okay, great. Did Brad join us?
He looks.
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah.
All right.
Oh, there he is.
I just had my microphone on mute so everybody could talk.
Well, welcome, Brad.
Oh, welcome.
Brad.
Would you like to say hello or a few words about yourself, or anything?
Yeah, I'll just kind of do a little quick thing. So yeah, I'm Bradley. I live over on Hudson Street here in Easthampton. I live here with my husband and my 2 daughters. They're supposed to be on college campuses, but they're not. So let's see, I've been doing transitional housing advocacy for about 20 years now. So I'm really coming at this from the public's perspective. I just want to be helpful. So I'm just going to take the next, couple of meetings that you all are doing and just following the lead and seeing where everybody's at. I've been reading through the minutes and the housing plan, and it looks like everybody's been doing really great work. So I'm excited to help out.
Brad, I'm so excited, but will you tell, when you say transitional housing, are you like SMOC or shelters?
Yeah, so, well, I guess it depends. A lot of different shelters. Transitional housing for families, anti-violence advocacy, so people fleeing domestic and sexual violence, and then also working with like the state back in Vermont to place people whenever their houses burn down or there's floods or things like that. So kind of a catch-all drawer.
Cool, thanks.
Great, welcome. Feel free to interrupt us or raise your hand or make a motion if you have a question or we're going too fast. Or, as I mentioned, I'm happy to talk separately if that's helpful, not during the meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so next on the agenda is just an update on what's going on with the CPA rental assistance. So I'm going to turn it over to Kate and Jackie and Jamie to give us an update of what's happening.
Who wants to take it, guys?
So I'll just start with the CPA at their meeting last Monday, or I guess 2 Mondays ago on the 18th, voted to recommend $300,000 to start this emergency rental assistance program. The appropriation request was sent to City Council, so it'll be on their agenda for their June 3rd meeting this coming Wednesday. They're not going to do anything with it except send it to their subcommittee. Finance subcommittee will meet on Wednesday, June 10th at about 5 p.m. So once I get that agenda, I will forward it to everyone on this committee. It'd be helpful to have people at that meeting on June 10th to show support for it. I don't believe that there's going to be much opposition from the city councilors, but still it's important to highlight the community involvement and need and support for it. So if people go to that meeting and speak in favor of the program as members of the partnership or citizens of residents of Easthampton, that'd be great. And then hopefully from the subcommittee, it'll go to the full city council on June 17th for a vote, at which point, if it passes, we'll put out the RFP the next day. Jackie, Kate, and I have been working on the RFP, which is largely completed. And there are a couple changes that the CPA committee asked us to make. And then it came up that we might need help to sell this to the public and the councilors. So one of the agenda items is about talking points to help support this program. And Kate started that talking point memo, so we can talk about
Amy,
if there's other things.
Do you want to just summarize? Why don't I just summarize? I mean, I think it's going to be hard to do the talking points without everyone just kind of knowing what this CPA program is. So do you want me to just really quickly summarize it?
Go for it.
So basically, I mean, this is a program that's modeled after, we literally, I'll just be transparent. I mean, we took the language of the town of Amherst program and we modeled a very similar program. And there's two benefits of that. A, why redo the work? They did a wonderful job drafting it. And B, the hope is in aligning our program with the town of Amherst is that we could have it might reduce some of the agency fees. So what the program is basically targeted for is anyone that lives in Easthampton. You have to be an Easthampton resident that's under 100% of AMI that has been affected, lost income, and Jackie and Jamie can jump in if I'm forgetting something, due to COVID or something about this emergency, is eligible to apply for 3 months rental assistance. And there's basically different numbers based on the size of your bedrooms. Like one bedroom, I could look at the draft in front of me. I just don't have it. I'm looking at you guys. And basically what we're looking for is a subcontractor who's going to administer the program. They're going to do some advertising for us. And though anyone under 100% of AMI is eligible for the program, the goal really is the target population between 50% of AMI and 100%. We all went to kind of a webinar on these CPA programs because it's relatively new. And there are 2 programs in the state, ESG and RAFT, that are currently available to people between 0% of AMI and 50% of AMI. So the goal really is to target the folks who aren't covered by RAFT. So what we're going to be doing is, if we have too many folks, we're going to do a round of lottery, right, to make it kind of fair. We're going to do a 2-week period and then a lottery. And what that will do is it would probably mean, so you can't, if you are currently, or you have to show that you've applied if you're eligible for RAFT or ESG. So the first round will probably target more of the 50 to 100% AMI, or that's the goal, and we'll do a lottery. After that, it's quite possible that someone between 0 and 50% of AMI that's already used ESG or RAFT could also apply. So the first round is a lottery, just to try to make sure that we get people fairly, and then after that it's by needs. It's possible that we won't even have a lottery. We just don't know how much interest is going to be there. So we drafted it in a way that if there isn't enough people, we don't have to hold a lottery. And I think that's the basic gist of it. I mean, I think the CPA committee was a little worried just about the perception of it. It is for renters and not owners. CPA is drawn from property taxes. And so that was kind of a pretty big concern. And the reason why, and you can read the kind of thing that I drafted up, is even in this CPA webinar that we went to, the reality is there's programs available for homeowners in terms of mortgage deferment that is not available for renters between 50 and 100%. So that was one of the big reasons. But the CPA was a little bit concerned about how this was going to be perceived. Again, it's only for Easthampton residents, but so they just wanted, and I think this is pretty good because I think, Dan Rist, who is the chair of the committee, says one thing and you have someone else saying something else. So I think if there's talking points, the goal is to just for everyone to be really consistent and say, here's what we're doing. Jackie, go for it.
I just wanted to jump in with what I thought was Jess Allen's really, really good question. So for you guys who don't know, Jess Allen is on the Community Preservation Act Committee. She used to be our city planner years ago as well. And she had a really good question, which was, have you guys talked to any local landlords to find out if people who live in their apartments are actually struggling to pay their rent? And I thought to myself, that's a great idea. And we told her, no, we haven't done that. So I'm wondering if there's a way to do that between now and June 10th, if we could just come up with a list maybe of folks and reach out and ask them that question. We know who a lot of those people are anyway.
Do we, Easthampton doesn't have a landlord association, do we?
Nope.
Because I know this came up in Amherst, and Amherst has a really active landlord association that they were going to reach out to. But yeah, okay.
And the Hampshire one is like, that they have a Hampden County one that's strong, but there's not a regional one. I mean, I think it's a good idea, Jackie, and I think that question will arise. So we could come up with a list to contact folks.
If you want, I can reach out to Dave Boyle, who he and his family own a lot of stuff, and ask him that question and also say, who else should I ask? Would that make sense to do?
I guess
And if you do get a list, I'll take a few names. I'll call.
Yeah. Or, we can also just divide it. I can also just email the same email
Sure.
to all of them and see what we get back.
Sure.
Jamie was going to say.
Yeah, I guess the way that I sort of have an understanding of who the landlords are in Easthampton is that there are a few small corporations or partnerships, LLCs, that own a large number of rental units, and then the majority of the rest of the units are, small landlords who might own between 1 and 4 units or something like that. And so if we do reach out to the landlords, I assume that the people we're going to reach out to would be the people that the Dave Boyles who have more units. And we should try to make sure, if we're going to go out in that route, that we should try to hit up some of the smaller landlords as well, so we're not just dealing with the sort of larger corporations, if that makes sense.
What's Dave Boyle's corporation? What's the name of the?
He's A to Z Properties.
Oh, he's A to Z. Okay.
His sister used to be on the housing partnership for many years.
Okay.
Yeah, A to Z, and then obviously I can never remember what Bernie's, who's not running it anymore, is huge.
Mountain View, or
no, there's Mountain View. There's 3 big guys, and I'm blanking on the name. Mountain View is for them, and then
Town.
Yeah, Bernie.
Yeah.
Bernie's is called something else. I can't think of it. They go through Rent NoHo now, but I can't think of the name of it.
Is it Autumn Properties?
Yeah, Autumn. Autumn's a big one.
Autumn is one of them.
Autumn is Dave Boyle's father and maybe sister.
Okay.
But
Actually, also Nikki D's been buying up a whole bunch of rental properties, so
Nikki D is a good one too. Yeah.
I have a good relationship with them.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's a great idea, Jackie.
yeah.
Yeah, also, he's my landlord, and directly across the street from where I live is David Brusco, who also owns a lot of property in Easthampton. So, I could just pop over and ask him, how things have been going. I know that he's had some people kind of time out of their apartments because they couldn't pay rent. So I can just get an idea from him.
That'd be great.
Great.
I think any anecdotal information we can bring to the committee is good.
Well, and just to jump to, I think it's the concerns that the committee had on the list, but this is one of the concerns too, which is just to keep in mind, and maybe as we're compiling the list, where do the landlords reside? So that was another concern that the committee had, which was these are some big landlords that don't live in Easthampton, so we're helping out big landlords. And I think the other argument is for the big landlords that don't live in Easthampton, that's okay because they're employing people theoretically that might reside in Easthampton. So just as we're talking about landlords, I just wanted to throw that in.
And they're also housing people who live in Easthampton. So that's who we're trying to help. And I think that's...
Is the model similar to Amherst that subsidized tenants are not eligible? Is that true?
Correct.
We
Because,
did clarify, though, that, and I think we might want to just double check this. Jess Allen did ask a question about tax credit units. And for those of you who don't know, tax credit units is not like a subsidy is where your rent is based on your income. A tax credit unit is like a soft subsidy. So it's, if you lose your job, you still have to pay. It's just less. Like, so instead of it, let's say the unit would rent for $1,200, the federal government is making it rent for $800. So I do think that we want to cover tax credit units, particularly because Parsons Village is a tax credit property, and they probably have a lot of people who. Oh, so that's another one. Maybe we should contact Wayfinders on Parsons Village.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And Appleton, because Cottage Square is the same thing.
That's a good question. Do you want? I can actually do Wayfinders, and let me add it to my.
Yeah, I can Appleton as well?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
I talked to them about other stuff, so let me. Appleton and Wayfinders. Does anyone know who the property manager is for I can email and ask out.
For Parsons, Dorinda Taft.
It's Linda Taft?
Dorinda. It's like Dorenda, I think is her name.
Dorinda Taft. Okay, thanks.
Was, but I think that's who it was.
I'll email Melvin, who's the North, and I'll ask who the current one is.
Yeah. That sounds great. Do you want to move on to talking points, or is there anything else we should know?
So Jackie, are you saying you're going to compile a list and throw me some names?
I think what I'm going to do is compile a list and just send them all the same email and then compile the results. Is that okay?
That's
or are
great.
Are you itching for stuff to do?
A little. But no, I'll wait. Another meeting's June 17th or June 10th?
June 10th.
Okay. All right.
Well, June 10th is the Finance Committee, so we'll want to get information for that.
It should be a little bit easier to go for the Finance Subcommittee than the full City Council, because it doesn't actually matter. The Finance Subcommittee, it could not pass. The Finance Subcommittee could recommend not to approve not to approve the funding, but then it could still pass at City Council.
But we don't want that, because it has a better chance of being approved if it passes through Finance Subcommittee first.
Right.
And that's a good place to practice our talking points and all the other stuff.
So one added thing, if you're itching for something to do, one added just conversation has to do with the advertising of this program.
Okay.
What it brings to mind is that we're going to be paying someone to advertise this program. This is a discussion. I think we should do this. Yep. And in the past, we've talked about, and I can ask Jana. Jana is not involved with this because her agency could potentially be a bidder on the program, but she then knows the Immerse program. Sure. One of my questions is, do we want to somehow connect, since we're going to be paying an agency?
I can't hear you, Kate.
You're frozen, Kate.
And this is why we do roll call voting.
Oh.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Yeah. Okay.
Do we want to revisit the idea of some kind of Facebook page on the city of Easthampton, so that when this agency is going to be advertising for us for this particular program, it will also get information out about it. It just could be a way to
spread the word.
But I don't know. I mean, again, we've talked about it before.
I think that's a good idea, actually. Any way we can advertise this if they don't directly do it, is a good way to get the word out.
Well, but it's a bigger thing, because if we were going to put some kind of Facebook thing, if we were going to try to then get more support, so, the town of Amherst has like a whole, Jana, do you remember what they have? Do they have Facebook? What do they have?
I thought they had like a YIMBY group.
Yeah, they have like the John. Well, John has, I don't know if they have a Facebook group.
But I'm just throwing it out there. I mean, again, so the idea would be to have something, and it could be through the city, but it takes a lot of work too, because you have to upkeep it. I mean, John in the town of Amherst puts in like 20 hours a week on his committee. So I just wanted to throw it out there that as we're having some agency advertise this program, that do we want to somehow just talk about, do we want a Facebook page? Who would support it? What would so again, and I don't know the answer. I just wanted to throw it out there.
No, it's a good thought. It really is.
Go ahead,
Jana.
I was just going to say, I mean, so disclosure and community action is, we're applying for the Amherst bid, and would likely apply to Easthampton. One of the things that we've been thinking about in terms of social media is figuring out who are the trusted people, right? So who, when you look at social media, for example, in Easthampton, people go to the Good News 01027 page for legit Easthampton news. And so And even I think the Easthampton parents page for sort of like filtered news. So how do you access those groups where people, where it's monitored? I mean, the Easthampton Mass page is a scary place because you get a lot of people do a lot of comments. So you would, like, if it were me, I'd be looking at places that get a lot of traffic and that people trust. So like the planning department page or the mayor, where the school, get something through the schools or something that people, they trust those sources of information.
Sure. Yep, I agree with you. All of the pages have, at least the Facebook pages have moderators.
Right.
But yes, the good news page it's a good one, actually.
Because you want to also because this, for any of the, I think, potential administrators, this is reaching a demographic of folks that we may not normally serve. Right. So people who are between 80 and 100% of AMI might not have ever heard of a community action or a Wayfinders. They don't really know.
No doubt. Yeah.
Where to go for help. I actually think most of these people are going to be far below that, but maybe they used to be at 80% of AMI or 100%, and now they're not. So I think creating our own page is just tricky because you have to keep it up and you have to keep it on all the time.
But I think, so maybe it would be through another place. I mean, the reason why this seems like a really good opportunity is because the advertising for this program will be reaching people that traditionally are not part of some of the other programs. And these are people that we would want on our version of the NIMBY page, that would want basically what Amherst was saying for folks who weren't there when Amherst came, is that they use this kind of their page that, like, let's say there's a project they want to support. They just have like 100 people that they can then call out to the community meetings or the planning board. So it seemed like something to discuss, but Jamie, is there a way, could we do something through the planning board? And
so we can definitely use the planning department Facebook page to push these out. We often ask, like, the mayor to put things on her page, or the police or fire, or the different groups, the different city agencies that have it, to push it out. Once it gets out there, I think it'd be really good to see if we can get a Gazette reporter to write a news article about it. Or Jackie, when you have a list of landlords, we should push it out to them. Maybe we can have them post it if there's like bulletin boards at the different larger complexes, specifically like Cottage Square or Parsons Village or something like that. So.
Jana, when you were talking about like using a trusted site, I'm not a Facebook, just so you know, I don't have Facebook. Were you thinking that, like, when the partnership has something to announce, that we would choose like either the mayor or the planning board, and we would say, look for updates on the housing partnership on the planning department's Facebook? Say more about how you were imagining it if we wanted to do it at all.
I guess I was more thinking about this particular project.
Okay.
But I actually, when you were talking earlier, if the housing partnership was going to have its own page, I do think that something like this is a good, like, launch, right? It's like something exciting to announce. That then, if we wanted to just have a page that's like, I support affordable housing in Easthampton, that this would be a good way to, like, have something exciting to talk about. So I was actually mostly talking about, like, advertising for this program rather than.
And I'm not sure, but I think I heard Ken offering to be the person who would coordinate that Facebook page, right, Ken?
That's why it came up. It seems like marriage.
Yes, Jan, I will do that, Jackie. I will do that.
Awesome.
All right.
So, are we talking about, so then I think, and I don't know if it would be a vote, I think that there's two things that are on the table. One is that we could just use the planning department's Facebook page for this particular project, or we could use this opportunity to launch our own Facebook page, and that is some work. I don't know. I mean, because I think to have a good
I think we can launch our own Facebook page.
You think? Okay.
But I do think that we should put it on the Easthampton webpage also. Maybe have our own kind of planning, our own page for us, this team,
Yeah.
housing.
I do think that official documents and stuff have to be on the planning department's, on the
Okay.
city's official website.
Yeah.
But I think it makes sense to sort of launch this project simultaneously with a Facebook page about the housing partnership. But also we'd want to announce the project, the RFP, not the RFP, but the grant money itself through all those other places we identified.
Right.
So I don't know if we should vote on this, but one question I have, Jamie, is that because for New York Minute, I worked for the city of Chicopee, and sometimes having so connected to an organization go through someone in the municipality. So I don't know.
I was just about to mention that. So there is a social media policy of the city that basically it's like way too many pages to be understandable. But I believe that we would need to work with the mayor's office and the IT director just to make sure that the people who are managing the social media site, part of it, have signed off on the policy, know what they're getting themselves into, and that we are still creating new pages. There's a question about public records and things like that have to happen with these Facebook pages when they're associated with an official branch of this city. And so the IT director has to have account access to the page in order to scrape the page regularly. If there's any comments or anything like that then could be subject to a public records request, that would need to be archived or recorded.
How does the police department do it? They have their own Facebook page. Are they subject to all?
Yeah.
I don't know how the police department does it. I don't know what they are subject to public records requests, but they don't. If there's something that's an active investigation or whatever, they don't have to. There's lots of exceptions to the public records request.
I'm saying that they have a Facebook page for their entity
Right, and the people who are managing it have signed off on the social media policy and
Can we model it after that one?
The planning department has one too, and we've all done that for the planning department to be able to use it. It's just that creating a new one, we'll have to go through all those steps before we can just go onto Facebook.
No, I definitely understand that. I'll do the legwork for that if that's what this team wants to do.
Do we want to vote on it?
I will say one more thing is that, if we can sort of have at least a weekly posting on the housing partnership page, then I think it makes sense to do their own page. But if we're going to be very infrequent, we're just, I don't know. I don't think it's going to get to any substantial amount of people that would actually view the page.
Traffic.
So can I suggest an interim step, which is that Ken does some homework to figure out what it means to host a Facebook page for a city group like ours, and come back at the next meeting and we'll talk about it more, because we won't have anything ready to launch by our next meeting anyway, most likely.
I'll do that.
So let's figure out what we need to do and what that would look like, and maybe you can share your what you find out with us, Ken, about what makes the most sense, because I hear what you're saying, Jamie. It does require somebody to be on there all the time, making sure that there's something to share.
Fresh content.
Yeah, exactly. So if we don't think we can do that, and it's kind of a heavy lift, then maybe we don't need to do that. But if you want to check into it, Ken, maybe that's where we start.
Definitely, I'll do that.
Because that's right up your alley.
And then so the corollary to what Jackie says is that, adding content to a page that already has been used. So like the planning department has about 1,500 subscribed people, and we post, once or twice a week. But if we had some more things to post on behalf of the housing partnership, that would increase our reach. And if anyone wants to have things posted on the planning department page, it's really easy to either work with Jeff and I to become like a co-host of the planning department page, or to just send us things and we can post it on behalf of the housing partnership.
So I don't think. Oh, sorry. Go ahead. I don't have a very strong feeling about this, but I think in terms of planning department versus our own page, but I think one thing we could do, and I'm happy to do this too, is like at every meeting, I would be happy to like send the planning department or Ken like volunteer to do a post about housing or information, or kind of like Jess Allen afterwards had sent like some interesting articles, or so I think either way we do it, either through the planning department hosting or our own page, and I think there is some value in the planning department. I think we can also talk about at next meeting maybe how we can generate some more interesting stuff, and I'd be happy to like do a post a month or something.
Okay. And maybe, after I do the research, at least for the Facebook page, that we can see which one makes more sense, the planning department page or our own Facebook page. How's that? All right.
That sounds great.
Okay.
So before we go on to the next item, I want to just go back to the rental assistance program. And recently, the state announced that they're going to be adding $10 million to the RAFT program for households between 50 and 80%. And that's going to be given, they're trying to see if they can give that directly to the agencies that already manage RAFT funds without having to go out to bid. So they're talking to HUD about that. And so I know we talked about having our program go for the 50 to 100% AMI. And that funding from the state has not yet been released or available to people in that 50 to 80% range. But just if there's anyone had any thoughts about whether or not we should even try to restrict to first have a round of applications between the 80 and 100%, and then opening it up to 80 and below, or just leaving it as it is, and that anyone who's already receiving assistance from RAFT or ESG just has to wait until that assistance is done before they can apply to CPA.
Jamie, does the state, when RAFT is defining, and this is an important question, are they saying currently between 50 and 80%, or prior to the emergency, 50 to 80%?
So the money was given to DHCD to administer through HUD through the Community Development Block Grant Program as part of the CARES Act. So the other programs that DHCD is administering have said, based off 2019 tax returns or current income verification. So if people have seen significant change in income, that they would be able to qualify. That being said, I don't know what the specifics are of the program that they're going to be giving to those agencies, and how they're requiring income verification to happen. And if it's just looking back two months and then projecting forward for the year, or what.
I mean, I guess my personal opinion is that I wouldn't worry. If it hasn't been released yet to the agencies that administer RAFT, then I wouldn't be too worried that it's going to happen quickly. And, I also, RAFT in Hampshire County is administered by Wayfinders. and they have an enormous volume in Hampden County. So it's really hard for them to reach Hampshire County to the same extent. And so I'm always worried that Hampshire County is left behind on raft. I think that the numbers of raft in Hampshire County are just really low. So just because the need in Hampden County is so huge. So I don't know. My personal feeling about it is that I wouldn't worry too much that raft is going to be like flowing down the street in Easthampton in the near future. But
Pun intended.
well, I mean, I have my own feelings about Wayfinders and raft, but I think that the data shows that Hampshire County does not get served to the extent that Hampton County does. So, yeah.
I mean, and also it's only $10 million that's going to be for that 50 to 80%, and that's statewide. So I don't know how far $10 million goes split amongst the 10 different agencies that split it, and how many people that actually helps.
I can't recall in this program, are we require? I know it's a pretty important thing. Are we requiring people that are eligible for RAFT to first apply to RAFT before they can apply to CPA program? I think we are, correct?
I think that we said they had to show that they'd exhausted RAFT first.
Right. So my only concern, I mean, could we just change the language a teeny bit? So my only concern is fairness and parity, which is if we're requiring people between under 50% to show that they have exhausted other options, fairness and parity, why wouldn't we require if it's available? So could we not just tweak the language a teeny bit? Because I think Jen is also right that I think there's a very high chance it won't be available. But do you see what I'm saying? I just have a parity concern, which is.
And I wonder if that's something that, whoever the agency is who wins this contract, I'm assuming that they would be on top of what else is being given out and what's available. I mean, I could be wrong about that, but it seems like there's a lot of knowledge base in all of those folks who might possibly be applying. And wouldn't they know if RAFT was exhausted through Wayfinders already, and then they could make that decision, or no? What do you guys think?
Jana, why don't you answer that? Because you would probably.
I mean, I think the trouble with requiring folks to apply to RAFT first, in my experience working with folks who apply to RAFT, is that a lot of times they never hear whether they were approved or not. And so I think it will really slow down. I mean, 2 weeks ago, I was on a call where Wayfinders said that they had received 1,200 applications for RAFT and basically admitted that they had no staff capacity to process them. And so if they're getting already have 1,200 applications for RAFT, and Easthampton wants to spend the CPA money quickly, I mean, people could get bogged down with waiting on a RAFT approval or denial that may never come. And so I just don't want, I just think that it could really slow it down. I mean, Amherst is basically saying you can't be receiving RAFT currently. So they're not requiring that you apply to RAFT first. They're just saying you can't currently have RAFT.
We're saying the same.
In the guidelines we put out, we said the same thing. We can't be receiving local, state, or federal assistance. And then that's in the program guidelines. And then in the RFP scope of services, we have them to hone this into a program. So if what they come back with is we want people to apply to RAFT first before we use them, then we'll at least know that the housing partnership says maybe that's not the best idea. But if they're already using that, then they can't double dip until those funds are exhausted or used up.
Yeah, I mean, if the administrator ends up being Wayfinders, it's going to be a lot easier for them to know if the person got RAFT, right? Or or make that sort of judgment call. But if you're not wayfinders, I think it's hard on another administrator to know if raft is exhausted, and it's also hard for the applicant to know where they stand just because of the volume of applications.
Then I think it makes sense for it to just say not currently receiving raft funds. Do you guys agree with that?
I mean, I think it does. I'm just looking at it again to see, because I feel like there was a part, because we did talk about the CPA meeting. I know Dan really liked that you've exhausted other. Jamie, do you see where that, is that in there? Mm-hmm. Maybe it's not in there. I know you can't currently be receiving it. I personally, I will tell you my personal, I think Jan and I agree and disagree on this, which is I actually personally think that you have to, I think the compromise is that you have to have applied to RAFT if you're eligible and you can't be receiving the funds. So what that allows you to do is you could sign like a self-certification or something like that. Because I do think that in a time, and CPA funds are valuable. I do think it's a good thing to require people that are eligible for RAFT and ESG to apply. And I think that you can work with a program administrator and if people want to perjure themselves, let them perjure themselves. And I know that that's kind of a barrier that many people would disagree with me on, but I also feel like we have limited money, and I do think that at least applying, I mean, again, I agree with you, Jana, that I think if you had to get confirmation of a RAFT application and denial, that would be ridiculous. But I think a self-certification that you have applied to RAFT and are not currently receiving RAFT, that would be my compromise. But when I'm reading it over, I don't think it's in there.
What happens if someone gets approved for RAFT funds after they've been approved for CPA funds?
Well, either way, that benefits. I mean, I guess that's what I'm saying, which is I want to encourage people, like, so that helps them. You know what I mean? It's like a double, we're trying to discourage double dipping, but let's say on those rare occasions, great. You know, I mean, again, I don't think we're going to be auditing people enough, but let's say we don't require people to apply for RAFT. Well, then they've only got our CPA money. So I'm not so worried about them getting both. I'd prefer for them to get both than only get one if they were eligible for both.
I think in reality what would happen, Jamie, is that, so let's say they apply for RAFT, and in the meantime, they get 3 months of rental assistance from the city of Easthampton. And so then they get approved for RAFT, and RAFT takes a look at their ledger, right? Because that's what everybody does, is you're not going to pay anybody's rent unless you get a confirmation of what they owe. And then you get a ledger, and in fact, when they applied, they owed $4,000, and now they only owe $1,500 because Easthampton paid this amount of money. And so then RAFT would only give what is still left. That RAFT isn't going to pay again, the same amount that we already paid. So, you know, because in the reality, if we're only giving 3 months of rent and it's capped at the bedroom size, like we're not going to, there's people that we are not resolving their problem. We are just making their problem diminish. And so if they then get approved for RAFT 3 months later, RAFT would only pay what's left. So I mean, I agree with you, Kate. I think it would encourage them to not miss an opportunity to receive assistance that we may not be able to cover their entire balance anyway. So as long as we're not making them prove it. Brad, did you have?
Can I just ask a quick question? Is there any kind of, I guess what my concern is if we were authorizing somebody through CPA funding and then the RAFT comes in afterwards, is there any kind of legal ramification for having both funding at the same time? Because I wouldn't want to do anything that I guess could set up somebody who is financially insecure right now, that, you know, a processing error, you know, in the RAFT side leads to them getting in trouble. You know, that's the only concern that I would have.
Well, it would, in my opinion, it could theoretically violate our own program, right? I don't think that's a rule for raft. So someone would theoretically possibly be violating our own program. The thing that you have to remember is a rule is only as good as its enforcer. So who's gonna, so I would never encourage, let's say we were working with DTA. We would never do anything that would put someone in jeopardy, because DTA actually has a whole legal department that's going to go after someone for double dipping in food. We could, theoretically the CPA department, I don't think we would be enforcing it in some way. So I think they would be violating the program. But also, if they signed something in good conscience, is that violating a program? I don't know. I'm not giving a legal opinion necessarily, but I'm just saying, like, in the reality, if I was applying through Community Action or RAFT, and I would do a self-certification, I have applied to RAFT, haven't heard anything back from them. I don't know if that wouldn't be necessarily violating the rules of the program. It depends how you structure it. But a self-certification, I don't think you're actually violating the program if at the time that you certify, you're being honest. You're not perjuring yourself. So it's not fraud or anything like that. And then there's the whole thing about consequences, which is, I don't think the city of Easthampton or agency that's administering it is going to be following up in that way, nor do we have any enforcement capacity. I guess you could theoretically, if you wanted to, and what the contract language is, if we made them sign a certain kind of contract, the way the DTA was, we could theoretically bring them to court. But I don't think we're gonna, my guess is we would not.
So can I, how does RAFT work? Does it only pay back rent, or does it pay rent going forward as well?
All this COVID stuff is so different now because they have all their stuff is more flexible, but I think it's mostly back rent, not forward rent.
Our program is designed to cover both forward and back rent. So theoretically, someone who's like, I don't have enough money in my account, I'm not working, I've already spent all my savings, like, they can apply and we'll pay their next 3 months rent, even if they don't owe it yet.
Right.
So I don't know if that makes much of a difference, but if RAFT is only going to pay back rent, then, they applied, they had back rent, we paid it out, and then.
So I just went to the page, and I'll show you all what it said. Oh, host disabled screen sharing. That's fine.
You can do it now.
Let me try it now. All right. So here's what it says. Here's the RAFT. Can you all see that? So it's flexible. So moving and cost assistance, rent and utility arrears, rental stipends, mortgage arrears, utility bills. So it looks like you can use it any number of ways. And here's the.
But it does say rent and utility arrears, which means back.
Yes, it does, but it doesn't say only that. Right? You can't get more than $4,000 within 12 months.
They're actually doing a waiver on that too.
Yes. So, but this also says right here, this is also security deposit, utility startups, first and last month's rent. So this to me looks like it can help with all kinds of things for what it's worth. Whoop. You don't need to read that letter of recommendation.
So that kind of alleviates the concern that I had then. I didn't know specifically if that funding had to be used for one, if it was specific to paying rent, but it looks like, at least just in my experiences, programs that are run like that are generally pools of funds to help people out who are in a difficult situation. So I guess maybe if somebody has a contact over there, can we just double check to make sure that that if there was a processing error that came through, I just would feel better knowing that nobody's going to end up in a bad situation. Just a double check, I guess.
Could you clarify what the question is? What do you mean if there was a processing error?
So I think it was, sorry, let me look at the list of participants here. So Jana was saying that there was you know, people were not hearing back about whether or not they were approved, and that there was over 1,200 applications that, you know, they were saying they didn't have really enough time or enough people to process them all. I just would hate to see both of those things, RAFT and CPA, go into effect and somebody be penalized for it. So do we have a contact over at Wayfinders that could verify if it went into effect and somebody was already receiving CPA, that there is no issues there?
So they wouldn't have to pay it back, right? The question is like, would RAFT then say, oh, you already got this money, you owe us $12,000, $1,200?
If it makes a
Right, exactly.
difference, the CPA money is going directly to the landlord. It's not going to the renter. So I don't know if that's like, it shouldn't affect their income, or it won't be treated as income because it's not actually going through their hands. So I don't know if that would like, there might be other concerns, but that wouldn't be it.
Yeah.
So I do know someone at the RAFT program, but I'm a little, and Jana might know the same person, but I'm a little reticent to contact them, because sometimes when you ask a question like that, it people can't necessarily speak freely, and it also red flags something that might not be a red flag. I mean, I hear your concern, Brad, but the way that both these programs work is no one's ever having the money in their hands, as Jamie's saying. So there's never like an actual, I mean, the biggest consequence to me would appear to be what Jana's saying, which is you might get less money from one of the programs. That is a very possible consequence, but it's pretty flexible. So I do know someone at RAFT, but I don't think I'd want to contact them, A, to red flag them, to ask that question when we're trying to get people as much money as possible. And B, I don't think someone can necessarily speak openly and honestly about that on some level. It's like asking Jana, if you're administering this program, you know, a lot of people just, no one really cares that much. So I could give you the contact if you would like to contact them, but yeah.
I mean, I can contact my person who administers it for Franklin County, which is not Wayfinders.
Yeah, okay.
And just see if there's a RAFT rule about that. And then she doesn't care because she's not going to be dealing with our people. And then
that's a great idea.
Give us any clarity. I'm happy to do that. Okay, I'll email Amanda tomorrow. I mean, I can tell you, like, when we do this at Community Action, and occasionally it does happen, you're like, oh. I mean, there's like nothing you can do about it. Like, oh, wait a minute, you got $400 from your sister, and we just gave you $400? Like, okay. You're not happy about it, but there's not a lot you could actually do for it. But I can check with Amanda, and we can just get clarity.
And Jamie and Jackie, just really quickly, since we're all on the same thing, do we want to add language, or Jamie, do you want to add something about, I don't see it in the documents, about if we don't put it in the document, I think we can work with our subcontractor, but I think that might just want to be added, that people have applied, not necessarily that we need approval.
Yeah, I'm going to update the RFP to include that.
Thank you.
One thing
I'm going to update the guidelines because I don't think it's in the RFP.
Right. And maybe you could also even put a parentheses, which is to help kind of tee it off for our subcontractor, which is self-certifications are cool. I think that's a very RFP language. Cool.
Yeah.
One thing that Amherst does say that I, as a potential bidder, I kind of like, is that it does say that like the guidelines are subject to discussion with the administrator. So it gives the administrator the opportunity to give some feedback or craft, you know, like this we can do, but like that's going to be really hard. And did you think about that? So that could be a suggestion to put in the RFP.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I need to leave at 7:15. So do we want to go through
The talking point?
Yeah.
real quick?
Can somebody share them? Because I could not open them.
I don't know how to.
I got it.
I should learn too, but
Can everyone see? Refresh to make sure that they are.
so Jamie, do you also want to just go down to the bottom of the document real quick, and we can also add things, but just to go to what are we trying to address in this document? What were the concerns of the CPA? So the CPA indicated these kind of 5 things, and Jackie and Jamie can add, which was why is this program for renters, not owners? Why are we helping landlords who don't even live in Easthampton? Like a NIMBY kind of thing, not in my backyard. Why are we giving so much money, and why do we need this program at all? And I don't know if I missed any there. Okay, so just as an overview of what the document is trying to address, and then we could go through other people's ideas.
I think the why do we helping landlords who don't live in Easthampton is hilarious. It's sort of hilarious.
It was a big concern.
Yeah.
We could only help landlords live here? I don't understand.
There's a concern amongst the CPA that because it's CPA tax dollars leaving Easthampton is a bad use of CPA funds. It is completely legal to use CPA tax dollars anywhere in Massachusetts, from any municipality to any other municipality. It only gets complicated if we're going over state lines. If there was a landlord who lived in Connecticut or New Hampshire, we might have trouble with using CPA dollars. But we're not helping landlords, we're helping the people we're helping renters. We're helping people who make up the fabric of the community. 50% of Easthampton rents. Like, it seems clear to me why we're helping renters and that we're not helping landlords.
Maybe we should have, I don't really feel like there's a point that really just says that out straight. So maybe we should just have a bullet point that literally says that. I mean, just to head on the concern. Because they did talk about it like multiple times, Shanna. They were like, and I don't know if that's a CPA concern or a real, so we could just add something that says it.
I mean, and when Greg was bringing these points up, my understanding was he was just trying to be proactive in case there was opposition to it. It wasn't that that he was actually concerned about these things.
So I didn't get a chance to read this. I apologize. But one of the things that, I'm really concerned about, and I know many of us are really concerned about, in terms of like the why do we need this, is that there's currently a moratorium on evictions that will last until at least August 25th. And, there's a lot of concern that there's going to just be this avalanche of evictions after that. And so anything that we can do that helps mitigate that for people, I think is just really important. And one of my big frustrations with all this COVID money that's like everywhere and everyone wants to give everybody money about COVID-19 is that a lot of it, the expectation is that we have to spend it immediately. So Community Actions receives some money and it's like, okay, and you need to spend it in, 6 weeks or 2 months or in 4 months. And I'm really concerned that the need is going to be in 6 months or in 8 months, and that this is not just going to end in fall. And in fact, with the eviction issue, I think it's going to be worse in the winter as people start getting eviction notices and they're not back at work. And so for me, I think why this is so important now is because it does help people sort of stay afloat a little bit longer. And it then makes it, if you're spreading out the chaos, then it's easier to apply for other things later that you might be eligible for later down the road if this kind of keeps you going for a few months. And maybe some of these people will go back to work and everything will be fine and they'll never get evicted. But I just think that the worst is yet to come on some of these issues in terms of evictions. So
Does this bullet point address it? And I don't know, without assistance, many renters, our neighbors, friends, patrons of our stores, and payers of state income tax will be under the threat of eviction. While there's currently an eviction moratorium in Massachusetts, renters are still obligated to pay their rent and will be brought to court once the moratorium lifts if they have not paid their rent. Without assistance, renters still face eviction if they cannot afford to cover all their unpaid rent when these eviction bans end. And then under it, it says evictions have a serious and long-term negative impact on households. Sorry, it's teeny when Jamie's sharing, including damage to individual credit scores that can take years to repair, and housing instability or homelessness that disproportionately harms the health and well-being of young children.
I think that's perfect.
Yeah, that's thorough.
I mean, it's stolen from other documents and not like really my language, but
I think it's great.
Yeah.
I think it's really important, and part of what I'm on the fence about in terms of having a Facebook page is that I think that affordable housing is a really sensitive subject issue, and I think that if we had a Facebook page, there would have to be a lot of education that went into that, and I think that we would have to manage and navigate a lot of people who made insensitive comments. And so, you know, if we did have that particular page, I think language like this and articles and things like that to educate people about what the experience of people are going through, because I do think that the situation, like Jana was saying, is going to get much worse. And I think the more that we can do to kind of help people understand what people's experiences are is going to be really important. And, you know, if we had, you know, a particular Facebook page that we put things on there that helps to educate or help people understand what people's experiences are, I think that would be, you know, the reason to do that. But if we can't do that and we can't keep up with that, then I think that we should, you know, put this information just on those particular pages that were mentioned, because I do think that this language is really important.
Connie, just because I'm going to have to leave in a second, I mean, that's the reason a little bit why I want a Facebook page, but I see it both ways, is because also in COVID-19, homes are becoming more important. I mean, my job is now going to probably do like 3 days a week, and like it's going to continue for a long time. If you don't have a home, like you can't get medical care, you can't. So, I mean, I think doing a Facebook page is also, and I would actually advocate that we not call the Facebook page what our name is. I think we should call it like, I don't know, making it up, but like live safe. People close their ears when they hear affordable housing. But if you call it something different, like help our kids thrive in the future, or keep Easthampton safe, and no, but like all my medical things are now, I have to have a home, I have to have internet. So, I mean, I think that's more, but yeah, just
Yeah, no, I agree. That's what I'm saying. Like, I think if we are consistently adding things on there to educate people, then I think we should do that. But if we don't do that, then I think we shouldn't, because I agree that that's necessary and important.
Well, we'll take a look at all of this.
Can I just comment, Jamie, on what you were just typing about? CPA law allows the use of funds from any municipality to be spent in any municipality in the state. I would take that right out of there and just spin it towards we're helping people to stay in their housing in Easthampton affordably. I think going there makes it worse. So just my thought.
What about, Jackie? Look at the one above, because I thought this would be helpful, but it could be hurtful. The CPA, remember they were talking about the CPA, that they have a certain percentage that they have to wait. So I just think it's, then you know, it's not like we're spending your special money for the money. Do you think that's okay, or you want to take it out? I don't care.
I mean, that is absolutely true. It's 10%.
Oh, it's 10%. Okay.
So 10% of what comes in every year absolutely has to be spent on affordable housing. And then the other, so 30% goes to an assortment of things. Then the other 70%, the CPA committee decides how to use it. But traditionally, we haven't used a lot of money on affordable housing projects because they're really difficult. to come by and to figure out how to spend the money there. So, but
This is using up more than the 10% that's been set aside over the years.
great. That's
So-
okay.
But you don't have to say that. I mean, I think this is, I purposely said, I know it's using more
It's
than the,
earmarked for that. Yes.
Right.
I'm sorry guys, I have to run, but I have, so whatever.
Thanks
date
for
you guys
doing
put-
all of this.
Okay.
And Jamie, I will be there for the next
Meeting.
thing. And Jackie,
Yep.
it sounds like you don't need, oh, I'm going to do Wayfinders in Parsonsville and Appleton, but you're going to, actually, Jackie, will you do me a favor? Why don't you email me what you're going to email everyone else so it's consistent?
Okay.
Okay, sorry.
I'll do that.
Thanks.
Thank you, Kate.
Bye,
Bye.
Kate.
Enjoy the night.
I only had one other comment, and I apologize for not looking at this before, but does it say anywhere in here what CPA is? Because I think that there's always this like, that's the money we're supposed to spend on blah, blah, blah. And, I think it's important to say like, again, like that it's on your taxes, it's for these particular purposes. This is not money that is really supposed to be for teachers that we're using for rental assistance, or it's supposed to be for potholes or,
My understanding that this was just a talking points for the partnership when we go to speak at the city council subcommittee and
oh, all right.
city council hearings, that they're not like actually putting this out as a talking points about the project to the general public.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we would want.
Frequently asked questions of FAC. So, yeah, I agree.
I think once we have a program, then we'd want to put something together that does do that. But yeah, this is really just to have talking points so that we can get this to pass through city council. Looks good to me.
Great. Looks great.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn so I can go eat my dinner.
Yeah.
I think it's great. I think they look great. I think you guys are going to do a great job. I'm sorry I can't be there, but I can't be there. So
Make us proud.
it'll be great.
I'll send out the copy of the subcommittee agenda when I get that. So I'll have the Zoom link.
All right. Do we have anything? I don't want to open another agenda item. Do we all feel good adjourning?
Yeah.
Okay.
Welcome, Brad.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Does everybody have my email address, or is there like a central email list thing? Just any information you guys can share with me would be perfect.
Was Brad on the agenda reminder list?
He was on the email that I sent about 4 minutes before the meeting started.
Okay, so he's on there. All right.
Okay. All right. Perfect.
And we do meet the last Thursday of every month at 6. So our next meeting would be June 25th.
Wow.
And we'll probably be continuing to Zoom, I'm imagining. Forever, probably.
Yeah. The last thing I had heard is that the municipal building is not opening to the public before June 30th. So, yeah.
Okay.
It's not so bad.
Hey, Jamie.
Yeah.
Can you send out those talking points to folks? Because I can't seem to find them in my Google Drive either.
Okay, I will resend them. I don't know if I have ownership, but I will.
Can you send them not in Google Drive? Sorry. I'm like Google Drive.
I couldn't access it actually. It prompted me to get access to from the administrator, and I thought that was sent to one of you 4-6.
I think it went to Kate.
Okay.
I will download it and send it to everyone as a PDF.
Great.
And if you have any comments, just send them to me and I'll resend it.
Okay.
Awesome.
Thanks.
All right. Awesome.
Okay, it is 7:21, and we are adjourning.
Thank you, everyone.
All right.
Bye, folks.
Everybody.
You.
One. Bye.
Bye.